DIY marketing, and I'm going to attempt to make it as simple as possible, but I want to start off with number one, grabbing your phones, because everything I do is interactive. Pretty much everywhere I'm at, I go right to my Facebook. And I want you guys to get this, because what I'm showing you here, I want you to go back and teach to everybody you lead. Everything that you're doing right here is marketing. Okay? This is like the Vince Lombardi, this is the football, these are the strings, this is, if you don't remember anything else, this is your football, Facebook is your string, okay? How simple does that get, all right? So you're going to go to Facebook and you see a little check-in? Okay, you're going to hit check-in.
Starbucks.
We're not at Starbucks. Okay, we're going to skip what Dr. Asplin said, and we're going to check in here to Chapel Hill Church, okay? And then at the top,
You must have a Bahamas Facebook.
at the top, you're going to put, I'm having a blast at CLST Global Commencement. And you're going to hit post.
Okay, now what do we hit after we hit Facebook? I can't remember.
Okay, so good question.
Check in.
Check in.
So Jay doesn't have a check-in on
I don't either.
Look, I'll help you. And then, so when you go in, for example, especially if you're on,
Are you in one? Yeah, I took down the wrong one.
Maybe that's what we did the chips. All right. Make sure.
Do you have Facebook? Do you have
and I know this guy's on there too. But for example, when you're on here,
So let's go out of there.
It's up to
especially
one.
today where you have to go
Yeah,
out.
but you have a
Oh,
Samsung.
Yeah, he has a
Oh,
Samsung.
that's right.
So, okay.
He has a Samsung, it's not a real phone.
Uh-oh.
I have a Samsung.
It's
So
like
we'll
a
show you.
phone
We'll
phone.
show you afterwards, and then you can check in right after this course. But when you are, and Dr. Langley pretty much likes to make sure everybody's on iPhone, so he'll probably tune his ears out on the fact that everybody has some Samsungs. But you make sure you check in, and then you hit Church at Chapel Hill, and you say, "I am having the best time ever at CLST Global Commencement." Okay. and then you hit post, all right? So that's 101 right there. That's simple. So remember, you're going to take this back, and for those of you with your Samsung, we're going to practice right after this, and then you're going to show everybody else with a Samsung, and you're going to tell them all to get an iPhone. But you're going to make sure that you check in wherever you go. That's how simple it is, because if you just think about it, if you incorporate this every Sunday even in your congregation, when you walk out there, the first thing you're saying after prayer is, "Hey, let's check in." Because think about all their, what we call assets. They're contacts, but they're your assets. Because they're the indirects. They're who they lead that you don't directly lead, correct? So that's the indirects. Those are known as your assets, all right? And so we're going to go over how we can simplify and multiply, which is simply with content, creative, consistency, and cost. I want to go over this because I want to be able to show you that, for example, I want to show you that, for example, you can basically spend $25 to $100 a week, and you're going to have an amazing impact versus maybe the normal bulletins that you're used to. So literally a trade-off from doing it the analog way to the digital way. And so really the cool thing about that is, if I have a bulletin and I'm going to tell my friend how awesome your service was, then what happens if I throw that bulletin in the car? I step on it, okay? But if I have an awesome service and it's all on digital, then I'm probably going to tell my girlfriend how awesome the service was, and I'm going to email it to her afterwards, right? And I'm going to say, "You're coming to this. You're going to watch it on YouTube. You're going to watch it on Facebook." And so that's where we're going here, is we're wanting to take the assets that we have and make the most. We're wanting to maximize those assets. We're wanting to take the budget that we would have spent on paper and put it all electronic. As much as you can going into Facebook, which also helps you advertise now directly with Instagram as well. So you're hitting two birds with one stone, okay? So imagine, let's say the budget is $100 a week, okay? Then we're going to be able to really make the most of that. And I always like to point out that it's not always quantity that equals success in social media marketing. It's quality. Time and time again. I mean, if you're running into a budget and you're going, I don't know, I can only do like $50 to $100 this week, then that's fine. Just make sure you have the quality. And a lot of times I think we can get stuck on who's our demographic, and we think our demographic is if we're in the church and they're already saved. You see where I'm going with this? Then we need to reach outward like we say we do and reach those that we're trying to reach. All right? So to reach those, if I am trying to reach, if I'm a steakhouse, I'm not going to sit there and try and reach every other steakhouse member. I'm going to try and reach all those Chick-fil-A people. Does that make sense? Because I'm trying to get a new, broader demographic and go outside of my norm. They're already saved. So I like to point out too that in social media, delegation is key. A lot of the times you can just grab a couple of interns, a couple of volunteers at your congregation and get them to really help you with the graphics. A lot of the graphics that I do, they're so simple. There's apps today that can really put out a graphic for you that's exceptional. And make sure that you email me after this and I can get you those apps. But it's so super simple that I literally can do it on my phone and just post it. And so that's one of the things that I like for people to understand, because you don't have to have like this major degree to understand marketing. You can absolutely use apps today and help them work for you and work smarter and not harder. So delegation obviously is key. Making sure, I always like to recommend that you have between 3 to 5 interns or volunteers that you can say, hey, you guys are the new social media team. You want a team. You definitely want a team that can post on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and I absolutely am a huge fan of Pinterest. Let me tell you why. I worked in ministry for years, and I can tell you that pretty much every pastor's wife that I worked with, when I needed to put up a photo wall, guess what she was telling me to go to? Pinterest. She didn't care about Facebook. She didn't care about Twitter. She could have cared less about Instagram. She's trying to get on those outlets. But what I need to get her is a really good photo wall. So guess where I'm going to go? And so a lot of the demographic we're trying to reach is not, I mean, like we've got to wake up to where they're at. So if there's a lot of pastors and pastors' wives going to Pinterest to try and figure out the new, I'm going to get rid of this shift flap and I need to put this up. I'm going to get rid of fixing that on the photo wall and put this new one up. They're on Pinterest. And so that's a very used platform that's underutilized in what we're doing. So don't forget to make all these platforms and go ahead and put your name out there on them. Go ahead and make one for your campus. Because whether you even have the interns right now or not, you want, with all the search, all the crawls, all the scrubs that all these search engines are doing, they're not just going to look and find you on Facebook. Pinterest is going to be hit, and now your church is going to be on that. Twitter's going to be hit, and your church is on that. You want to get on as many platforms as possible. And again, that's where the graphics help. So a lot of the content that you're doing, you put in the graphic. A lot of the content that you're doing, when you post that graphic, if you want enroll now should be right across that graphic. Your logo, your branding needs to be there consistently for the first year. You know, if you're the pastor, you want people to know you're the pastor. That first year, you're not going to put up 5 million different people. Build your brand that first year and make sure that it's built well, that it is on everything that you post. So your church logo or your marketplace logo should be on there every time. And then after that, you can start rolling out into more of focusing on your content, on that graphic, but making sure that in all of the content that you write up, the descriptions, you have what you're wanting to say on there. So if you're enrolling students in a school and you're saying, hey, enroll now, you want all of that information of how they can contact you directly to be very simple on there. And then lastly, I wanted to discuss, especially on the average expense, I talked about the $20 to $50 per week on the ads. And really, I want you to remember that if you don't remember anything else we talked about, you're focusing on checking them in. Okay, that's at least the simplest thing that you can do. And even on that, when you post, you can say, hey, enroll now into our new Bible college, just with check-ins. So let's say you feel like you have nowhere to start. Your check-ins are so underutilized. All of your friends on Facebook are looking at what you're doing. The minute you check in, they're going, is she at a restaurant? Is she at, you know, especially on Sunday, she should be at church. I am at church. Enroll into my Bible college. I am at church. I'm a student at a Bible college. Check this out. And that's what they need to see. That's marketing made simple, because a lot of times we skip the most basic way to announce the most powerful things. And so that in and of itself can really start you to having the confidence, because you're going to have a lot of people that see that. And even you can put polls in there when you check in. You can say, hey, we're going to be starting a new Bible college. Who's interested in starting with me? Comment below. Get the rhythms going. And make sure that you keep it on repeat. Those check-ins are so important. A lot of the way that I've grown the assets that I have on Facebook now, which is close to 5,000 for me and my husband, is purely off check-ins. Everywhere we go, really making check-ins viable, because they have been able to come into your life. So not only when you're checking into your church, but when you guys go out on date night, check in. You know, we're going to step away from our Bible studies for a date night. And they're going, Bible study? Where do you do that at? So just remembering that your life, make it a lifestyle habit of checking in to everywhere you go, and you can put it in what you're doing to grow your Bible college. And so the interactive closing I want to make sure that you guys get is taking your photos today while you're in there, especially of all the students, especially celebrating with them, videos, anything that you save on here. And even if you can't, if you don't have very good cell phone reception, do the videos in your photos. And then when you leave tonight, making sure that you post them and making sure you let people know, here's where I was, here's what I'm doing, here's where I'm going, go with me. And so making sure that you do that is going to be really, really huge. We do have some media kits that are really super simple graphics. So if you're interested in those, make sure that you get with me after this course, and then we can get those to you. All right. Any questions?
You're going to have to show the Samsung users how to check in.
I will. Before we go into that, though, I do want to mention, remember all the assets that you have, all of your friends on Facebook, remember to make sure that you go to your teams and your staff, those you're leading, and you have them do the same thing you're doing. It can really get difficult if you're the only one doing it. So the main thing is you have to have those 3 to 5 people that you're already building as a team, and making sure that you're already having your staff should definitely be on board. Like, that should be a no-brainer, because all of their friends, all of those they influence are also your assets. So making sure that they check in the same way you are, and letting people know, especially on class class day, if they're taking photos while they're watching their course, just think about how powerful that is. So, even doing little campaigns, for example, when you run your ads, campaigns of having the free offers where your staff is shooting a photo and they're talking about, here's what I'm doing with my course. Currently it's 21 Irrefutable Laws with Dr. Langley. And they're taking a picture of them right on their online access of your Bible college. And then they're posting it. So all their friends, people you don't even know yet, are going, wow, what is that? So remember, encourage it, and they're only going to do what you do. So as you do that, encourage them to do the same. Okay?
I have people liking my check-in.
Very, see?
And I put Donna Avery is awesome.
Thank you. So that's it. I hope you guys have enjoyed. I do have some other, and I can also add this to your media kit if you guys want to have this and just have something to review on the PowerPoint.
Donna Avery is live.
What?
I'm just impressed with my own phone. I can't believe I have a good phone.
I can't even get a signal.
Oh.
Are
Yeah,
you on
I
the
know.
Wi-Fi? Did you go to the church's Wi-Fi?
No.
You should I just jumped on the church's Wi-Fi.
So let's give a commercial for Verizon.
For Samsung?
For
I have
Samsung, yeah.
Samsung too.
Okay, so remember, what was the main thing? What was the football?
Vince Lombardi.
This is the football.
Your phone.
What's the strings?
Facebook. Facebook.
Exactly. So just check in. If for nothing else, that's like
Actually,
a
they're
free
called-
resource.
They're called laces.
Laces. Laces. Yes. All right.
Who was the defensive guards?
Yeah. The defensive
They're the
guard.
people who like your check-in.
There you go. Very good.
So I'll just go to Pinterest to find ideas like.
And if you're doing it, think about how many others are doing it. And I'm telling you, when you make the graphic that says, your Bible college logo and enroll now, we have our new Bible college opening. Like there's so many people that connect even through that. So I have that even on our Avery Fitness group. So I have that connected from CLST Go. And there's our friends asking about it. So a lot of times Pinterest is so underutilized, and it's amazing because we don't think about how much we use it ourselves. And that's exactly what's happening. It's growing.
How much do you use Pinterest?
And I'll tell you, I can spend maybe $17 on an ad there. That's outstanding. Because it's so underutilized right now. So thank you.
Thank you.
And if everybody got the idea, these concepts work. If any of you have businesses, personal businesses,
Absolutely.
I mean, everything she just said is pretty much locational,
You're very much here.
Transferable.
yeah, trans whatever.
No, it's not. All trans.
You get the idea. All right, you're up, Dr. Asplin.
So, David, do I have my thing on your computer?
You have whatever you need, sir.
My
Whatever you have need of, you have a daily task.
And there's not a clicker,
There is not.
but it's a real computer, so I know how to work it.
Yeah. Lord.
Whoa.
Who's on here?
Who's right? Right, sir?
Thank you very much.
Yep. Yeah, I think you can just hit down when you.
I know how to hit down.
Yes.
I'm not a Mac user, I have a real computer. It's good to see you all. We're gonna finish up. I'm wearing this hat, not because I miss Oregon, although I do. Both Dr. Langley and I hail from Portland.
Except I was born
So,
But
I
Hale's the
had
opposite
surgery
of
on my head, and I just had the
that.
stitches off. I left a hawking big scab on it. I don't want to see it, so I don't want anyone else to see it. It's just kind of embarrassing. Really. What happened to you? I'm fine. I live in Florida. I had skin cancer. I forgot to put sunscreen on my head. So I'll be fine. How's everybody doing?
Super good.
So, down button. FYI, charting your way forward. So this is going to be more of a kind of a typical, little bit of a typical catch you up where we are and where we're going, taking up the tail end of our presentations today. So that's kind of my job. My name is Larry Asplund. I'm the Director of Program Development, which means I get to give attention to the more specifically academic issues. Because as I love to tell our other staff members, we are not a product, we're a school. And so we actually function under the Department of Education in the state of Georgia. And you know, that means that it's complicated also. And so our tech guys, who are wonderful, and I love them and all that they're doing, are designed to make the delivery end simpler, but the production front end is still very complicated. So because we have to be able to generate student records and course records and faculty records, et cetera, in order to answer to the people that we answer to, because they've authorized us to give degrees, et cetera. So we have to give attention to that. And that kind of is where, you know, and sometimes I feel like a party pooper, you know, and I have to say, okay, hang on. How will that affect student records? Will it affect the ability to generate an official transcript? What? You know, so it's my job. It's my job. So I'm going to give you more of a typical kind of an education. I like to do this because I think it's important for me, it's important for all of our staff to keep in mind the core values. So the core values for CLST Global, those of you who are newer, CLST was founded in 1983 by Dr. Ron Cottle. It went through a transition during the years of Beacon University. A lot of our background, I came into it through Beacon University, so I moved to Georgia to be the Vice President for Academic Affairs at Beacon University. Dr. Gavin was my Dean of Leadership Studies. Virginia was the Dean of Students. So we have a university background. And then Dr. Cottle handed off the baton to Dr. Langley, who added the word global to the end because it is now actually global. And so it kind of preceded the university, and the handoff was still there. So it was an organization that never went away. And so it's very important in my mind to keep in view our core values. Quality means academic integrity. It means that we are able to answer anybody's question as to qualified faculty, as to academic rigor in courses. You know, and there are some cases when we will actually say, you know what, our course content is maybe more than what you want. Not that we're trying to discourage you, but it could be that you need to start, because we are now global, we maybe are serving rural pastors in Vietnam. And so because we have academic standards that we maintain, it can be too much for some guys. And so we have other access to other, missions type curricula that might be better for them. So quality is very, very important. We're committed to academic integrity. Flexibility means that we have resisted, because we're non-traditional, we have resisted defining prescribed degree programs. So you remember, if you've taken courses in a college or university, they will say, okay, this is the Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology. And there are a certain number of courses that you can take whatever you want. But other than that, you have to take these courses. And so because we are designed to serve local churches as our founding, that's the foundation, and designed then serve individuals who are committed to leadership, as Dr. Langley would say, and I certainly agree, a kingdom-oriented leadership, even in the marketplace, then it's really not our purpose. We're not traditional, we're non-traditional. It's not our purpose to tell you what you must take. So what we do is we accumulate, we have degree levels. 126 credits, no matter what the courses were, will earn you a Bachelor of Theology degree. See how that works? And then every time you add on 49 more credits, you get the next level, Master of Theology degree, etc. So that creates customizable, highly flexible. Now we have a lot of concentrations, and I will introduce a new one. And those are for people, because we will have students and pastors, etc., who will say, "Oh, we have no idea where to begin. What if we have a specific interest?" Well, then we do kind of as a coaching mechanism in our mind. We're not prescribing, we're not requiring it, but we do have ideas for you, so that if you want to have a Bachelor of Theology degree with a concentration in Christian counseling, let me suggest this. See how that works? And so we're not requiring that, but that's kind of a coaching mechanism. And then on your degree, it would say Bachelor of Theology with a concentration in Christian counseling, or whatever it might be. And so we're intentionally flexible, which makes it very possible to be customizable in terms of meeting the needs of a church. In fact, I pastored several years in LaGrange, Georgia, and I utilized, and I don't see a lot of pastors do this, but I utilized the certificate programs a lot. So one year I would say, I really feel like we need more lay counselors in terms of the lay leaders in our church. And so I rolled out the counseling, the certificate programs are just 5 courses bundled together. And I would require them. Now, if I require them to take the course, then I have to pay for it as well. So I would require them to take those courses, and everybody got their certificate at the end. So it's really designed to meet the needs of the local church and the individual students. And then affordable means that if we are going to actually meet the needs globally, then we can't just charge whatever we think will pay the bills. We have to keep the fee as low as possible. Our course fee has not changed. I don't know how many years. Dr. Langley has never raised it. He kept the one that he inherited. That was 6 years ago. Right now, higher education is getting more and more expensive. The average tuition now is $750 a credit hour, which means if you take a 3-credit course. In fact, I just read, because I'm on the faculty of Regent University up in Virginia, and I just read an article that said that for the first time this year, we had the first school in America whose tuition rate exceeded $100,000 per year. Whoa. So higher education is very, very, the concern of mine, frankly, is that the more that it ends up being true, the more higher education just ends up being for the rich in our society. Right. And so that's another issue that you can think about on your own time. So for us, being affordable is very important. It's a core value for us. So let me jump to, because I'm going to kind of frame this in, and then I'm going to introduce something new. So in order to maintain our core values, we had to focus on growth and development strategies. And so Dr. Langley inherited a great curriculum with a set way of doing things that was very effective, but was dependent on us mailing you what you needed, you mailed back what we needed, etc. And it was labor intensive, and it took a lot of time, but it worked. But for us to maintain our core values, we needed to focus on growth and development. So for instance, maintaining academic quality, that means integrity and accountability, guiding the development of all new courses. So we still do not short circuit the development of new courses. Dr. Gavin just submitted a new course, which we'll talk about. I, this fall, will be developing a new course, a new parenting course from Dr. Lon Flippo, who is Dr. Langley's best friend from way back. And so, long time, back to Evangel College back in the day. And so, we still are very, very rigorous in how we develop and then release course content. So we want to make sure that that still is going to be true. But then developing a developmental flexibility requires a constant exploration of how to improve and facilitate course delivery options. And that's where our new smart kids, I think of them as kids, because they are compared to me. That's where finding them has been such a blessing. But I don't know if you would ask me as an old university, professor and administrator, what are some cool ideas that will help us, develop new options? And I said, well, I really don't know. You need to find somebody like my son's age who can tell you what those are. So that, it really demanded it. Frankly, the schools who have not been able to, the traditional schools who have not been able to do that are going out of business very, very quickly. The schools who have been able to do that are growing by leaps and bounds. And so you'll get the news reports, and they'll say more and more schools are closing the doors. Yes. But they are schools who were not able to break out of the traditional, especially the traditional liberal arts mode, and explore other ways of doing it. The schools that have been able to innovate are doing very, very well. Now, we realized we had to be able to do that. It's either that or just decide, some year we're going to show up and say, this is our last year. We love you all. God bless you. Peace and love. It's all been great. But if we're going to keep going and grow, we have to explore those new options. And then, while the cost of higher education is continually increasing, maintaining affordability at CLST Global requires continual innovation. Now, higher education is expensive because it's labor intensive. And you've got to maintain academic accountability, you have to have student records, course records, all up to date. You have to have faculty records, etc. And so the only way and that means that the cost, unless you're just staffed with all volunteers, the cost is just going to go up and up and up and up and up. So the only way to keep that from happening is to innovate more and more and more every year. So we're working smarter, not harder, right? And so that's been the pathway that we have been on. I kind of wanted to review it very quickly for us, the story. And I've had the privilege, I joined Dr. Langley's team in the summer of 2014. And it was the next year that we began to realize stuff was going to have to change. And so this is kind of a chronology. Now I have to explain, when I say 2016, all of these changes started as soon as we were done with this annual event. We kind of announced what it was that we were getting ready to do. And then back in the day, we all went back to Columbus and spent the rest of the year doing it, and then lived the following year in the light of it. So this has kind of been our story. In 2016, all course contents began to be digitized. How many of you know that was a huge job? Scanning and deciding that we're going to be a paperless office. And so it's like having both of your legs cut off. Because we have people who have been on our team for 20 years. So to be able to say, okay, as of January 1, so 2016 began to digitize all educational content, but administrative content as well. 2017, new global education partnerships were initiated as a result. Because if we have all content digitized and available online, then somebody in Malaysia can access it. Or somebody in Kenya can access it. Or somebody in South America. Whereas before, there really wasn't a lot. Anything that we could do for you would cost a lot of money. So you remember Dr. Sim back in the day, that fairly often, from time to time, Dr. Cottle would just box up curriculum and sell it or give it to a missionary and say, good luck. Because we weren't in a position to serve them. We couldn't really serve them. And we don't know whatever happened with it, you know. We don't know if it was effective or not. And so, new global partnerships 2018, the in-house print shop was discontinued. That was like cutting off both arms. With a new focus on digital delivery options. So having our own, but I have to tell you, because I was there, the print shop was a money pit. So we lost over $100,000 a year just keeping it going. So it was kind of neat. We could print textbooks and print all kinds of whatever we wanted to print, you know. But we were dependent on. But you know, part of the problem was if you ordered a course and you needed 3 textbooks and 3 syllabi, we would print 12 and put the rest on the shelf in inventory, and we had a huge inventory. So I don't need to tell you that was not a good business model at some point in time. And so that changed that, right? 2019, here we are at the end of a process, development of a new online learning management system, Talent, to begin to create new online learning options. And that's what Russ and David just explained. And then that's going to result, because everything we do bumps the next thing, that's going to result in increasing focus on the use of the CLST Global LMS for the operation of cleansed schools, not just online students, not just virtual cleansed schools, just normal cleansed schools, and delivery of course content and examinations. Examinations was the most labor-intensive thing we did. So you'll remember back in the day, you got a Scantron sheet, you had to have a number 2 pencil, and you fill out the little bubbles. You know how that went? Yeah. Fill out the little bubbles, which works fine unless you're a Florida voter. I've discovered the Florida voters, they never really did get that, you know.
That is the truth.
And so, you know what I'm saying?
That is true.
And so, but it took a long time, and oops, and I erased it. Oh, I erased a hole right through the thing, and now what am I going to do? And then once you sent it into our office, we had to pass it through a computer and a program that took a lot of time, and it was labor intensive. So now when you take your exam, and increasingly, Russ mentioned starting next year, I believe it's March the 1st, we're going to, our goal is to transfer all exams over to the online way. You can take your exam, you can log off and come back. It remembers where you were. You can start in again. It's open book, you know. Okay, I need to look that up a little bit better. Okay, I'm going to change that one. Maybe take a couple of hours. Boom, submit it. Grade is immediately there. Feedback is immediately. The grade report goes to the administrator of the school, and we get, you know, because all along the way I've said we have to have student records. We have to have student records. So our genius guys, you know, figured out a way to make sure that it generated an email message with a report that we immediately goes into our database, so that we have all the student records that we need. I'm glad they didn't. I have no idea how they did it, but you know they did it. And so,
Dr. Aswad,
yeah.
let me just cut in right here and also say that don't confuse the fact that you're using and you have access online to your resources with meaning you're an online school.
That's right.
Those are 2 entirely different things. We do have some online schools. However, most of our schools, what we're encouraging and assisting them to do is to access things for efficiency sake and to eliminate a lot of time waste. They can access things online that they used to have to order or wait for it to be mailed to them, but that does not make them necessarily an online school.
And we used to call it a virtual school. When we first were digitizing content, we would refer to a virtual school, which was just an online school, as a school where all the students are only taking courses online. They're not taking them any other way. But even as we were mentioned earlier, even if you're still doing a weekend intensive, you still get tremendous benefits by having students register as students using the learning management system, have them enrolled in the course, have them, they have access to the videos, have them take the exam. So no matter how you're conducting your school, it just greatly improves and facilitates matters. So that's very, very important. So just real quickly, as a result, all Clan schools now have a more effective student registration, course registration, and promotional options readily available. Don has done a tremendous job bringing us up to speed with all the various ways to communicate and is available to help our schools, etc. Individual students have immediate access to courses that include a graded exam. So we do have an online clstgo.com is where online students go. Individual students who are not a part of a school, individual students can go to clstgo.com, global online, and then we serve them as individual students, and their process is completely automated from beginning to end. And then school leaders have very little administrative duties, and it's not like we didn't think you were doing a good job. It's just it was a big job. And I'm convinced, in fact, I know that some schools eventually closed because it became too big of a job for the local school administrators to do everything that was required. And then the Clan price list is now able to remain the same. No course fee increases. Yay! Although some individual schools have increased the tuition they charge their students, which means there's more tuition share, because it is kind of a business model too, So if you have a school and we just still charge you $100 per student to access everything and all of our support services, etc., and you charge what, $180, $200 or whatever, the rest is yours. So it's designed to also benefit all that you're doing as a school. clstglobal.org, in case you don't already know. clstgo.com is for individual online students. Again, my recommendation, even because it's so easy, even if you have a school, a set, established school, you can have an individual online student from the other side of the globe register as a student in your school using the LMS, and then they become your student, which means that, because if somebody contacts us as an individual student, we keep the whole course fee. Is it okay to say that?
Yeah.
If they're your student, we don't. We share it with you. So don't think that, you can go to clstgo.com has really been a breakthrough, technology for us, and it's wonderful for students. But I also encourage you, if you know of somebody who would like to take a course, but they don't live anywhere near you, sign them up in your school. And then Talent LMS has introductions to all that they do, both for schools and for students. I saw some of you taking a picture of this. This is the URL, the address for them. And you can get the whole, demonstration of it. Are we good? Can we move past? So one of the things that we started to do was create concentrations in our Bachelor of Theology program. A concentration we used to think of in a traditional program, we would think of kind of like a major. We bundle 10 courses that are related together in a certain topic, and then we call it a concentration for students who have a specific reason why they might want a Bachelor of Theology degree. And you don't have to have a specific reason, but for those who do. And occasionally we will add, almost every year we have added a concentration because we saw the need for it. And so one of the things that has been happening is that the area of chaplaincy has been broadening out for probably the last 20 years, I would imagine. So traditionally we thought of military chaplains. Still being a military chaplain is a very rigorous process. It requires a standard MDiv degree, et cetera, et cetera. And they, the military maintains their own standards, but now there are all other kinds of vocational chaplaincies that are being encouraged and promoted and trained for, which are really wonderful. Not only there's hospital chaplaincy, of course, there's prison and jail chaplaincy, there's corporate, marketplace chaplaincy, first responder chaplaincies, and of course, those have always been available on a volunteer level so long as we don't call them anything too much. But I'm talking about vocational chaplaincies. And so what we wanted to do was to address that need, and I went to work, and Dr. Langley's been pressing this button for a couple of years, and he's younger than I am, So I went to work to research what would be needed in order for that to really be legitimate and qualified. Got a list of core competencies, because there are now accrediting agencies who accredit programs for chaplaincy. Got a list of core competencies and realized that we had a selection of courses that trained in each one of those. But for me, in my mind, for it to really, really be good and legitimate, I wanted to have somebody who had a background in chaplaincy create a course for us, Introduction to Chaplaincy, that would qualify and that would be good. So my friend, Dr. Ron Gavin, come on up, Ron, while I brag about you.
Oh, goodness.
Ron was the Dean of Leadership Studies at Beacon University, and we became good friends back in those days. Ron is a retired Air Force chaplain, correct?
Correct.
Got his DMin degree at AGTS, where I also graduated. And has the background, has taught in chaplaincy programs, and I thought, if we're really going to do this, let's do it right. And let me see if I can get Dr. Ron Gavin on the phone and see if he would be willing to develop a course that would be an introduction to chaplaincy, to headline a chaplaincy concentration. And it took a little bit of persuading, but not a whole lot of persuading. And so Dr. Gavin has developed our headline course in the concentration, even brought the required textbook with him. So tell us a little bit about what you've done.
Okay. First, I'd like to say just that when God called me into the ministry, I was at University of Virginia one morning, 6 o'clock. Got not the audible voice, but the next thing to it. But I never knew where that calling was going to lead me. But I always thought that, God, I got this. I'll be pastoring. So I thought I'd be a pastor. And I did pastor. I pastored several times, had several churches. But one day God opened the door and called me into the military chaplaincy. And that was something that really wasn't on my radar. But my point is that when we get a theological education, God is doing such wonderful things today in ways that we have never thought before. Just imagine, 100 years ago, you did the same thing. If you were in ministry, you did pretty much the same thing. But now God is doing so many things, and as Dr. Asplin was making reference to, now that we have the chaplaincy, when that door opened, there are so many other chaplaincies that are expanding. In fact, in one of my churches, I had the chaplain of the Washington Redskins. Talk about causing divisions. But God is doing so many incredible things. There are people in all kind of chaplaincies, and there's basically 3 levels, and the course is going to talk about that. You can get into the paid situation, or you can get into kind of a reserve, kind of a situation where you're like on call. But then you can go into many of these places as a chaplain that's with a lay ministry, part of a church. And I've done that with my church in the past 2 years, going into the chapel or going into the prison and helping out with music and doing some of that. So there are all kind of opportunities in the chaplaincy. There's different levels that you can get in, and as Dr. Asplin said, it's also can be a vocational. And we walk you through all of that. Everything you need to know about the chaplaincy. For someone who's praying about it or wondering, Lord, you called me to chaplaincy, but I wonder which area are you leading me? Well, this course is going to open up and help you to be able to walk through that door and learn about the skills that are involved, but also the history. Did you know there's a rich history of the chaplaincy that goes way back? As Dr. Asplin mentioned, military was the first chaplaincy, but how many of you knew that in the 1600s, the Massachusetts Bay Company had workplace chaplain because they were forced to work on Sundays with that. In the late 1800s, you had some clergy that got together in some small towns and villages and began to visit prisons, the jail, before there was a federal penitentiary situation. So this is really going to walk you through. It's going to get you into the skills and the understanding of the chaplaincy from many different angles. And then at the very end, something that we learn in the chaplaincy that came out of the hospital chaplaincy is how to write a verbatim. And the verbatim is the final chapter of our course, or the 10th week or 10th lesson. And what that's going to do, I call it bringing it all together. Because now you have a snapshot of 7 different chaplains who are going to write verbatims on situations they were placed into. Whether it was the death of a child, or being in the emergency room and someone has died, or people that have got chronic pain and they need a chaplain, many different areas. So you're going to be able to actually put all these skills, all this understanding together, and be able to walk almost right through the door with the chaplain, and you will have a recorded conversation, which is what a verbatim is, on what they said, what they did, and then you have the other part of verbatim. After you worked out the conversation, you go back and you reflect on about 8 different areas, and so now you say, where did I not do so well? Where could I have done better? So you're right there with a very learned chaplain who's walking you through not only what they said, but what they did and what they should have done. That's where it all comes together. And there's 7 different snapshots, and we look at 3 of them there at the end. But the chaplaincy is an incredible opportunity today. One other thing I might say about it is that we're understanding that chaplains are having more of an impact on the unsaved and the people of the marketplace than any other clergy. And if you think about it, people go to a church, right? And in that church you have the pastor. But what about all those people that are never going to darken the doors of a church? Well, there may be a workplace chaplain. There may be a military chaplain walking through the flight line, as I did, or someone visiting in a prison on a regular basis and running a prison program. And they are touching people. The greater numbers of people are outside the church in our society. In fact, it shouldn't be a surprise to you. You know that the attendance has been going down in America, not other places, but in America. So the church is having less of an influence on a whole lot of people out there in what we would call marketplace. But God is raising up chaplains in so many different areas, and they are really touching and impacting people's lives. And an institution will give them the complete access to all their people. Just a few weeks ago, Debbie and I were visiting with a friend of mine who just went to work with Corporate Chaplains of America. And he is full-time as a chaplain, and he is visiting several different large corporations. Corporations are wanting chaplains. Why? Because corporations are helping their bottom line. If they have people that are happy and they're working through problems with marriage and other situations that a chaplain can do, because people spend 30% of their life basically in a cubicle or at work, they are now having a tremendous opportunity to touch and change people's lives. And so the chaplain ministry is something that's very doable to the extent of the theological education that you have.
Excellent.
What book is that, Dr. Young?
The book is, it's Essential Chaplain Skill Sets. I went through a bunch of books, but this is Chaplain Keith Evans, and I just like the way he put this together. I think it's going to be a great resource, great book.
That'll be the textbook with the
That'll
course.
be the text.
Excellent.
So I so much appreciate Dr. Gavin's willingness to developing a course is not easy. So I appreciate him doing that. Thank you so much, Dr. Gavin. Let me, before we go, simply mention that the new 2019-20 manuals are online now. As Dr. Langley mentioned at lunch, we don't wait till the annual event to print up a bunch, and if you're there, you get one. If you're not, you don't. They're online, the CLST Global Catalog, the Clan Operations Manual, but every time there is a change or an addition, we make it immediately, and so that is reflected in the manual. So we're not gonna just wait and make annual changes. And we'll always communicate with everybody, by the way, we have new media, or we have a new course, but those are now, the Georgia Department of Education, asks for a copy. So they want to make sure that we have the most recent catalog and most recent operations manual. So thank you very much, everybody. Exciting news, good things happening at CLST Global.
Yes.
We appreciate it. I wonder if I